the carpets, and we bet on who could finish first. And
Okay.
Very nice. That sounds like fun. I love those.
He's 10 years younger than me, by the way.
Right.
So,
well, I'm going to say that because you made good on your lost bet and you were brave enough to make that bet.
Well done.
And you called the show. We're gonna be nice, and so I'm nice anyway. Okay. But we're gonna take into account that you're strong-armed into calling. So let us hear it. Go ahead.
I honestly don't know what to say. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Yeah, sure. So have you? I mean, were you raised in the church, or is that something you joined?
I was baptized. Actually, March 28th, I call my D-Day.
Okay.
I was baptized March 28th, 1999.
So were you at all religious? Did you switch from one religion to another? Did you switch from no religion to Mormon? Like, how did that go?
Well, I was Catholic when I was young.
Okay.
And my parents divorced, and my father's not religious whatsoever, and I went with my father. And so I didn't follow any religion, but he was very much, he wasn't non-religious like, atheist, talking bad about religion.
So, I mean, this is weird, but your mother was Catholic and your dad was not?
Okay. I hope they don't listen to the show. So my dad was Catholic, but he left the church and then they divorced.
Okay. Now I understand. Because I was like, how were they married?
I was going to be getting into my childhood.
Okay.
I had no idea I was going to be getting into my childhood.
That's okay. This is like just a chat, right? We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and please, if there's anything that I ask and you're just like, I'm not comfortable talking about that, or I don't want to answer that, or that's too personal, just say so. You're not required to answer everything if you're not comfortable with it.
No one listening anyway.
Yeah. So it's just us.
Well, so my employee, his name is John. Hi,
okay.
John. How you doing?
Shout out to John.
He's always talking about, shout out to John. You're the best, whatever. I'll give him some trouble tomorrow. But
he had to say that it was part of the bet.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, so go ahead.
But, March 28th, I joined the church. But before that, I lived in Texas, moved back to, so I grew up in Arizona, moved to Texas for high school. And then I lived in New York, yada, 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 moved back to Arizona and lived on my own. And a couple of sister missionaries approached me and they gave me a challenge to pray. And I prayed. And it was right before a job interview. And I didn't think I was going to get it. And they told me if I pray, I will get the job guaranteed. And I prayed somehow.
And you got the job. Let me guess.
I got the job.
Okay.
I got the job. I showed up late even to the interview, and the guy interviewing me was kind of a schmuck. I feel bad for saying that, but I got the job. And from there, I took the missionary lessons, and I joined the church.
Okay.
And I went on a mission even.
Okay.
So I served a mission in Washington 2 years, and that was one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Okay. So basically, is it correct then that prayer experiment is kind of what got you believing that God was working in your life?
Yeah, because, I drove a real fast Camaro at the time, and I was just living this young man's life, and I pulled over my Camaro, and somehow I wasn't going to pray before I went to the interview, but I did. And I prayed, and sure enough, I got the job. It's more than that. There's a lot more things. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of nervous about this.
It's okay. No, you're doing fine. So if Do you, or do the people that spoke to you, or I guess you can't really speak for them, but I mean, is it the case that you think that anytime you pray for something, God will come through?
Well, sure, when I pray diligent enough.
So then you could pray diligently for someone who's dying and they won't die.
No, I can't make miracles happen, So
there's a
wait a minute. No, we're not talking about you. We're talking about God. Right? That if you pray, God yeah. And so I'm saying if you pray, will God come through for you all the time?
No.
Okay, so sometimes God says no. Right?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
So sometimes when you pray, wait a minute, I'm trying to figure this out. So sometimes when you pray, you get what you want, and that's evidence that God exists, right?
Yeah.
And then when you pray and you don't get what you want, that's God existing and saying no.
That's like the learning curve,
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is there any way in this experiment that there would be a negative result for a God, or is any result God?
Does God sometimes, if the question is, does God sometimes not answer my prayers?
Well, does he? I'm not saying that he doesn't answer, but he answers and says no, right? Says this is not the thing for you.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is if I do a test to see if there's a God, and there's a God whether I get what I pray for or not.
There's always, yes.
Then how is that a test?
You need to be able to show a negative.
It's not a test per se, like as far as...
But it was a test because they basically said you'll get a yes response if you pray. But here's the thing. What if that job would have been like the worst thing for you and God would have said, hey, no? That's a bad idea for you to get this job.
It wasn't a great job.
Okay.
I heard the boss was a jerk, too.
Yeah, I heard he's a schmuck.
Yeah, it wasn't a great job.
I mean, here's the thing. I understand what you're saying because you are one of like a ton of people, including me, who believed that God was working through prayer in their lives, right? So I believed that, too. But what I started to realize...
You don't believe it now?
No, I don't believe it now. And part of the reason is because
You guys don't believe in God?
Well, no, that's why he's asking you to call our show.
That is correct.
Yeah. And so what happened with me is that I started to realize that a God that answers sometimes yes and sometimes no is kind of... And I hope this isn't offensive phrasing, but there's like a colloquial term that says shit happens. And this is kind of the same as praying to a God that sometimes gives you what you want, sometimes doesn't. It's no different than stuff just happening to you. How is it different?
I would say I can't say it's different.
Is it possible that things are just happening to you that you sometimes try to influence, you sometimes don't, but just, sometimes we all, like I could work very hard for something and not get it. And I could be deserving of it and not get it. And I could also not even try for something and then get it, right? And this happens to people all throughout their lives, whether they believe in a God or whether they don't believe in a God, because everybody who goes through life, things happen to them, right? There's a little book that I found one time, and I took it as, it was very funny to me as an atheist, but I'm sure it was meaningful to people who were religious. And on the cover of this little journal, it said, pray until something happens. Something is always going to happen.
Well,
eventually.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, something is always going to happen.
Right.
But, your name's Tracie, right?
Yeah.
Tracie and Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right?
Wow, that's very good. Thank you.
Okay. I wrote it down thinking,
good choice.
That was y'all's names.
That's awesome. Thank you.
But don't you feel the presence of the Savior in your life?
No, I used to believe that that's what was. I used to believe that was like my whole life was just guided by that, and I would pray about everything. And
You gave that up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I say give it
Why
up.
would you do
Well,
that?
I did give it up. I mean, I did give it up because I came to understand, first of all, that the holy books that I was putting my faith in were not really holy books. They were books written by
It
people.
got nothing to do with holy books.
That's
It has
fine.
to do with
Yeah.
how you feel.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that I felt that the God that was working in my life was the God of the Bible. And so when I realized that the Bible God that there wasn't a Bible God, that the Bible itself was just not really what I thought it was, and when I started to understand how the Bible was put together and that this was just something that people produced, then I had to realize, like, wow, so then what is God? What is this thing that is working in my life? What is this stuff if it's not the Bible, if it's not the God that's in the Bible, if it's not Jesus? And so then I started looking to try to figure out what is God. And I had lots of conversations. It took me about 10 years of conversations with different people, putting my ideas forward, having my ideas challenged, having to explain myself and realizing that I couldn't. Really, really looking at what other people were saying and what I thought was right or wrong about it, what they were telling me was right or wrong about what I thought, just having these conversations, looking at information. And ultimately what I started to realize for myself, the way that it happened for me, which is different for everyone, was that I was like, if there's a God, that God would be everything. That God would be good, it would be evil, it would be dark, it would be light, it would be just like every contradiction of everything. It would just be all things and nothing. And when I started to think about when I started to realize that, what I realized was if it really would be everything and all-encompassing, then it would be the universe, because that's everything.
And we call that the universe.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what happened in my head. And then I was just like, wow. And then I started going back and looking at things like what you were just describing, the way that I would pray. And if I didn't get what I wanted, I felt like God was looking out for me. Like God was not letting me have something that I might want, that maybe he knows better and there's something better down the road, or this thing might not be good for me. And so I always justified not getting a thing instead of just saying, maybe I just didn't get it. Maybe I just didn't get that job. Maybe I just did get that. There were jobs I had that were nightmares that I wish I hadn't have gotten, right? Like at the time you get it, you're thinking great. And then I would get into it and it would be like really awful and I couldn't wait to get another. It was really difficult to get another job, And so, but all that time when I was attributing it to a God, I realized it was almost like one of those movies where that you find out that the killer isn't the killer. And then they go back and they show all the scenes and you're like, oh, it wasn't them. And you thought that it was. And I looked back at all these things and I was just like, I was attributing all of this to the hand of God, but really it was just stuff happening in my life, like stuff happens in everybody's life. I just was putting this layer of God on it. And I don't know why.
Sometimes you get a job and sometimes you don't get a job.
Yeah. And you can say it's God, or you can just say I didn't get the job, or I did get the job.
I'd say this about you, Tracie. You would make a fantastic member of my church.
Except
you're
I
so
can't
well-spoken.
believe that the Israelites came to North America as an ancient tribe. Like, that's just too much. And I don't need are these the people with the planets, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, they got planets. And Tracie, I can see you with 10 kids.
Yeah, I can't do that, yeah.
Have you guys heard of the 13 Articles of Faith of our church?
Probably not.
I'm sorry, not
don't have the highest opinion of faith.
My church.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, all of them are kind of like, okay, so if you went to like the Pope or the head of other churches, I don't know the names of their other churches.
Okay.
But if you ask them what you guys believe, and the founder of our church is somebody named Joseph Smith.
Yeah, heard of him.
And he wrote down...
Palmyra.
Well, you know about our church.
Well, I mean, Mormons are pretty famous, but I guess my problem would be that I don't think that there's a God at the source of this stuff. I think people are doing it, and they're attributing things to God, and really it's just people doing it. And I don't see any evidence that there really is a God doing it, because when they do things, the things that impress them are the same types of things that impressed me, like what you were describing with the prayer experiment. You got the job. If you hadn't got the job, according to you, that still wouldn't be a negative result, right? Because there could still be a God who was looking out for you.
It would have been for me then.
Well, then can you set up a new test?
Sure, I have.
Yeah,
right, but we've already established, though, that
Well,
even if it says
here's
no.
my suggestion. You take 5-gallon pickle buckets and you take 10 of them, and 9 of them you put a mouse trap, and the 10th one you don't, and you have sets of 10 lined up 4 or 5 times, so you got like 50 mouse traps or 50 buckets, and you pray that God will guide your hand into the bucket without a mouse trap, and you stick your hand in there, and if you get snapped by a mouse trap, that should tell you something, that either God's not there or he's not looking out for you.
Yeah, but you got to realize that some little experiment with buckets and mousetraps isn't going to be something our Heavenly Father is going to care about. If I'm
How do you know that?
Well, he should care about if somebody believes in him.
No, I guess I shouldn't have said care. I should say if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna put you on trial right now.
Yeah, see, that's kind of goes back to what Tracie was saying, is that if you get the job, God wins. If you don't get the job, God wins because he doesn't want you to have that job. If you don't,
doesn't win.
Because if you don't get the mouse trap, God guided your hand. If you do hit the mouse trap, it wasn't worthy of God's time. I mean, there's no way for God to.
There's a video online, and I don't know whether to recommend it or not, but it's just about. I can summarize it for you so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing. But it's basically like pray to a milk jug.
Oh yeah.
Right. So get yourself empty milk jug and pray to that milk jug, and see if the milk jug answers your prayers the same way God does. Does the milk jug sometimes?
But you've read the Bible, right? I mean, you know you can't tempt.
That's why I'm an atheist.
No, I'm not tempting God. I'm saying pray to a milk jug for a month and see if you get similar results that you get when you pray to God. Like when you pray for things, do you sometimes get them and sometimes not from the milk jug? And do you then believe when you do get them that the milk jug has answered your prayer?
Well, I don't ask for quantifiable results.
Well, can I get a job?
A job's pretty quantifiable.
Yeah.
But
that even makes the test. Wait, that makes it even weirder of a test, right? When you're not even asking for something that can be quantified. Like you're sort of making this thing softer and softer. I think you could plug in a milk jug, pray to the milk jug, and you will sometimes get what you want and sometimes not.
Well, I've got another line of questioning for you. Does God have a plan? Does he know everything that's going to happen in advance?
Of course.
Okay. Why do you pray at all then?
Because I want to speak to my Heavenly Father.
Right, but you're asking him to change something. And who are you to ask?
I'm not asking him to change anything of his plan.
Did you ask to get the job?
Oh, no, not at all.
You didn't ask?
No, I didn't ask for the job. The sister missionary said if I pray before I go to the job interview, I'll get the job. So when I prayed and said, Heavenly Father, I'm here.
Okay, so I'm so sorry.
And I asked for nothing.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time keeping up, so forgive me. I have problems sometimes. They said if you prayed before the job, you would get the job.
Before the interview, yes.
Right. Thank you. You prayed before the interview, you would get the interview. You'd get the job. Did you want the job?
Yeah, I had nothing.
Okay, sure.
I had 2 nickels.
Sure. And when you prayed, did you know that you were more likely to get the job by praying because that's what they told you?
Yeah, I felt.
Okay.
I felt.
Sure. So you can semantically dance around it with word definitions, but you prayed with the intent of it influencing the probability of you getting a job. You got the job.
Sure.
And then you recognized that you getting something was a result of the prayer, so you did pray for something. So you can't now say you didn't pray for that reason.
You know what, I have to say you're right. However,
I like you.
When I got the job, I didn't even know, okay, so I said a sister missionary. I didn't know she was a sister missionary. She had a little tag on. And looking back to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and said her name. And she told me about this at the gas pump. I was putting gas in my Camaro. I had a Camaro back then. And she said, if you pray, you'll get the job. And I prayed and I got the job. And I didn't know she was part of the LDS faith whatsoever. Okay. And I've talked to John about this. A couple of weeks later, I was working, and a couple of elders knocked on my door, missionaries, knocked on my door. And they came into my apartment and they saw this pamphlet that girl gave me. And they said, "What is that?" And I said, "There's a pamphlet." And I told them what happened. I told them this girl said, if you pray, you'll get the job. And they're like, "Whoa, holy cow." And they started teaching me about the church right then. And so it wasn't like what you think. I wasn't like, I'm going to pray, I'm going to get the job, God's going to come through. And obviously, if I didn't pray and didn't get the job, I think my bigger picture was not that job. That's not the job I have now. I've gone to college, I have a good job. I think the big picture was this sister, the Spirit telling her to ask me to pray about this.
Right, but the problem is you don't know if you hadn't prayed that you wouldn't have still gotten the job.
Yeah, it's not the best.
Right, so...
Of course I don't know.
Right, and so it may just be that she told you to do something and you did it and it was completely irrelevant to whether or not you would get the job. That had you just blown it off and gone and, watched TV instead, that you would still have gotten the job. That's the problem. This experiment is not a really well-designed experiment, is the part of the problem. The other issue that
It sure isn't.
Right. The other issue that I have is that there are people who have different gods who pray for things and they get them.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason why I brought that up was because that's one of the reasons why I'm part of this faith.
Right, but I'm saying there are people who are in other faiths. There are people in other faiths who have other experiences, right? That have similar experiences to yours, and they have different gods.
If someone prayed to Muhammad before going to a job interview and they get it, does that mean that they're right and you're wrong?
Or what does it mean? Right? I don't know what it would mean.
No. It means our Heavenly Father is looking after that person no matter what they're doing.
Okay, so what if Allah is the true God and he's looking out for you even if you're a Mormon, even if you're in the Mormon church?
Then, I don't know. I don't believe in Allah.
I know you don't, but you just said that it's possible that you could be feeling like God is helping you out and working in your life, and you could be following along the wrong God. Would you rather be following the true God?
Of course, I am. I'm following the true God.
Right, but you just basically finished saying that there could be a Muslim somewhere who's having the exact same experience as you, and it's because your God is looking out for him. And I'm saying, what if his God is looking out for you?
Well, that human is also being taken care of by our Heavenly Father. One thing I did like when I was a kid, when I was a Catholic, right? I remember one of my earliest memories when I was a Catholic. His name was Father Simon. It was a father up there. He was great. He used to have a fishing pole, and he used to sit there and I'm a fisher of men. And one time it was a different father, and I stood up in church as a little kid and I said, "Hey, Mom, there's a different God." And everybody was shunning me for that. But one thing I remember when I was a kid is that if you weren't baptized and you weren't Catholic, that you're kind of not going to paradise. You're not going to heaven. And, or you're in purgatory. I'm not a Catholic right now, so if there's Catholics out there listening, I apologize because I'm not sure about that. But one thing about the LDS faith is that if you're Muslim, if you're a guy in the jungle that worships a totem pole, and you have never heard of Jesus ever in your life, you don't know about his struggles, his sacrifice, you don't know about our Heavenly Father, the Spirit, anything, there still is heaven for you. Not just heaven. You can be with our Heavenly Father.
Right, but what if you're wrong, right? What if you're wrong?
What if I'm wrong?
Yeah, what if you're wrong?
What if you have the wrong religion?
What if you're following after the wrong God and the wrong doctrines?
That's what I'm saying. If you're wrong, like this Muslim fellow,
yeah. He
still can be in heaven.
Right, but what I'm saying is, what if your view that everybody who's got the wrong God is going to heaven is wrong? What if that's wrong?
What if I'm wrong?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Well, then I'm sure I would. I'm very intuitive. I'm very in tune with what is right and wrong in my life.
Okay.
And I would know that this is wrong for me.
Well, I'm not saying wrong for you, but couldn't something be wrong and still feel good to you? Because look at all those other people. I mean, you're basically saying that people following other religions who have different doctrines are all wrong and they have no intuition to speak of that can guide them. What I'm saying is there's somebody right now in another religion saying that they have all these great internal, compasses as well, and that they are totally sure that they are following the right religion, and you will burn in hell because their religion is right. And if you're wrong, wouldn't you want to know that?
Yes. However, Joseph Smith asked Heavenly Father about that.
You think?
And he said, what other religions are there?
Right, but what if Joseph Smith is wrong?
There are a lot of religions that claim that they have done the very same thing and they're the only one true path. How do you know they are wrong?
Well, I'm not the... John, I guarantee you, John is listening right now. John, you're in trouble. Look, the point is that our Heavenly Father has given that answer.
You're saying this, right? You're claiming this. What I'm saying is, how do we know you're right and that these other people making opposing claims are wrong? How do I know that as somebody who's hearing all these claims from all these different sides that conflict? Because some people say you die and go to hell. You're saying everyone dies and goes to heaven. And I'm saying, how do I figure out which one of you's got it right, or if any of you have it right?
If you feel like it's wrong, then you shouldn't do it.
So if I feel that Mormonism is wrong, I shouldn't do it.
Absolutely not.
But wait a second. I have an example that I use sometimes, right? So let's say that I'm going down a dark alley and I'm going to my car after a late night out partying downtown. And I decide to take this shortcut through this creepy dark alley because it's just going to save me a couple blocks, right? So I just want to get where I'm going. And I start getting in this alley, and it's getting kind of dark and creepy, and I've had a little bit, and I'm like trying to get to my whatever.
It's a regular night for you.
Yeah. And so maybe I'm not really drunk. Let's take drunk off the table because I'm going to my car. So I'm heading to my car, and it's like late at night, and I start walking down the alleyway, and there's this big dumpster parked on the side of this building, and I see something moving that looks like maybe someone is crouching behind this dumpster. And I start to feel nervous, and I start to feel scared, and I start to feel concerned, and I start asking myself, should I turn around maybe and go back, or do I even want to turn my back on whatever or whoever that is behind that dumpster? Should I have even taken this alley shortcut? Was this a really bad idea? And I start getting that kind of hot, nervous fear, and I'm kind of slowing my pace and wondering what I should do, and I'm afraid that I'm going to maybe get mugged or attacked or worse. And as I get a little bit closer, I see that it's just a loose garbage bag blowing in the wind. And then I feel relieved, right? Like, oh, I'm so glad that it's just this. And then I get out of the alley and I'm like, okay, maybe I don't take the shortcut again. That was a little bit scary. So here's the thing. My feelings did not align to what was real. Right? I felt strong fear for a garbage bag because I thought that it was a person that might be hiding, which there's not a good reason to hide behind a dumpster late at night in a dark alleyway, except if you want to.
There might be good reasons, yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Not good reasons.
I don't want to. I'll talk to Phil later about his reasons, but the thing is, feelings are not the best way to determine whether or not something is true, because our feelings are feedback about what we believe is true. They're not telling us information about what is true. They're telling us how we feel about what we believe is true, even if we're wrong. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So a feeling is not the best thing to go on because it's just reinforcement of your own belief. So you already believe it, and then you have the feelings that go with the belief because you believe that. Just like if I believe it's something scary, then I feel scared. The belief isn't informing me that there's something to be afraid of. It's just reflecting my fear.
But Tracie, see, when you were walking down that dark alley and you're taking this shortcut in some downtown city, I don't know where you guys are, but
we're in Austin.
Let's pretend it's downtown.
Sure.
Okay. Austin, downtown Austin. I've been to Austin. Hey, Ziggy, I don't know if you're listening.
Okay.
If you're going down this dark alley and you see something and suddenly you start feeling emotional about it, you start feeling scared, what do I do? That's an evolutionary response right there.
Yes, I agree. But my point isn't that it's not normal. It's that the fear is just an emotion that goes with what I believe, even if what I believe is wrong. Whether what I believe is right or wrong, whether it's true or false, the belief is going to follow, the feeling is going to follow the belief. And so if I have an incorrect belief, I'm going to have a warped feeling that goes with that.
You're going to have a genuine feeling about something that's not true.
You're not getting the point. Hold on, Tracie, you're not getting the point. What's wrong? The point is, your belief was correct. Because if you're walking down a dark alley and there's somebody crouched down there, and it really isn't somebody, it's a garbage bag, and you're scared for no reason, that's fine.
I'm not saying it's not fine. I'm saying it's not proof of a person crouching behind a dumpster. And what you were...
It isn't a proof behind them there, but your belief that you have intuitive inside of you is correct.
No, it's not, because it was just a garbage bag. What I'm saying is that when...
What if it wasn't?
Okay,
so, hang on,
but that's not the point.
Let me jump in, because I think you're talking past each other. Are you saying that her belief is correct and her emotions are correct because that's what she really thought was there?
No, I'm saying that if we're talking about... because you guys are a religious show, right?
We're an atheist show, so yeah, if you want to label it that, that's fine.
So if you're talking about, you want to bring this to our Heavenly Father. So you're walking down this alley and you're getting this intuition that something is there. And there isn't something there, okay? Yet you get scared, you recoil, you're not feeling comfortable. That's a correct response.
Right, but what you're saying is that you're saying that because you have intuition that heaven exists, then that's evidence heaven exists. And what I'm saying is it's not. If I have an intuition that there's somebody behind that dumpster, that is not evidence that there's someone behind the dumpster. And you're even saying that it's good intuition, even though it's based on an incorrect belief. And what I'm saying is your intuitions, you may have an intuition and you may have a feeling, but that does not mean that you're right about what it is you think that it supports as far as what you believe is true.
You may say that about me.
I can say it about any human being. It's true about any human.
You believe in the religion that I believe, but I'm saying that about you, Tracie. Tracie, right? Yeah, Tracie. If you're in a dark alley walking ever in downtown and you feel like somebody's there, you should run. That's a correct feeling.
Right, but it doesn't mean that there is somebody there.
So I think I'll say that, yes, the feeling is correct, but the fact that there's a person there is not correct.
Right. I should never, though, think that the feeling is evidence for the person being behind the dumpster. The feeling is not evidence. It's just a response to what I believe.
The feeling is evidence of your response, but not the fact.
It's evidence that you should trust your instinct.
No, it's not. It's evidence.
It is, though.
No, it's not.
You shouldn't walk down that alley. You shouldn't.
We're stuck, so...
Can you at least admit that a feeling does not have to align with what is in fact true in reality?
That's the whole point of that conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to say my belief in heaven is correct because I have feelings about it. There must be a heaven because I have feelings that there is one.
What I'm saying to you is your feelings were correct. No matter...
Right, but my belief was totally wrong.
There or not.
Right, but my belief was totally wrong.
But your belief, your response was correct.
Yes, but my interpretation of what that would mean if I ran, if I believed that my fear meant my emotions do not change what's real, I guess is what I'm saying. My emotions do not impact what is really going on.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right.
It's not real because of your emotions. But however, if you're walking down that alley and you run because you have that feeling, and there is somebody there, you ran.
I could be. Let's make it like you're happy that you're pregnant, and then you find out you're really not. That it was a misdiagnosis, right? It doesn't have to be a dire life and death thing. You can have all kinds of feelings about things that in fact are based on false beliefs. You can have feelings about things that are false. And that's what I'm saying. When you say, I believe that my heaven is real because I have these instincts and these feelings about it, I'm saying those feelings have nothing to do with what is real. They are simply your responses to what you believe is real, even if you're wrong. So they're not evidence of anything.
They're evidence that you should trust your feelings.
No, all right. I don't know where to go with this. We'll just have to let this call lie.
It's true, though. It is true that you should trust your feelings.
No.
In that circumstance.
No, you should trust what is real. Whether you feel a certain way about it or not is irrelevant. You need to know what's actually going on. I don't care if I feel like my house has a good foundation. I want to know if it actually has a crack that's a problem. My feeling that it's fine doesn't mean that it is fine, and I want to know if the foundation is messed up. Wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah, so do you think I should trust my feeling that my foundations are fine and not get it checked?
No, you should get it checked.
Okay, then I shouldn't go with my feelings, and I shouldn't trust just my intuition that the foundation is okay. When I go to buy a house, I need to get the thing checked by an inspector.
That's right. And so the same is, if you're walking down an alley, you should have somebody with you and say, hey, go check behind that dumpster.
Yep, safety first, folks.
Yep.
Because I had that feeling.
Yeah, but the point is, your feelings don't support your beliefs. They are simply responses to what you already believe, whether you're right or wrong. I don't know how else to say it.
Well,
I completely agree with you.
Then next time someone asks you how you know that you're right about heaven and that there's not a hell that people are going to, don't say it's because I feel like it. I feel like that's what it has to be. I have good instincts.
Going to hell.
Huh?
I didn't say anybody was going to hell.
No, I'm saying people did, and you said, no, my religion says everybody goes to heaven. And I said, how do you know this? And you said, because you have these feelings and these instincts about it, and you'd know if it was wrong. And I'm saying, no, your feelings and your instincts don't tell you what's wrong.
It's not my feelings. It's because of the teachings of the church, because
the whole question is whether the teachings of the church are correct, and you used your feelings as support for how you knew these teachings were right. The whole question is whether or not the teachings are correct. You can't use the teachings to prove the teachings.
I mean, there's also evidence. There's not
evidence. There is no evidence.
You would have started with that if you had
evidence. If there was evidence,